Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday to you. Definitely got those Friday afternoon vibes going. Uh, my hair is out of control, so I put a hat on. I'm at home because I had to help with the kiddos, and I'm wearing my favorite sweatshirt, Bayern Munich. They got a big game tomorrow against Leipzig, soccer match or football, if you want to use the European words. And then also, my alma mater, the Crusaders of Valparaiso, play Purdue. I think I told you that yesterday. Tonight, 7 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. It's exciting, also. So a lot of big things going on in Mr. Brunette's life. I'm joking. It's kind of boring, but did get to feed my kids lunch. They're pretty funny. They did some funny stuff. They think it's funny to pull my shirt up and pick my belly button. It's kind of cute, and then they laugh. All right, we got 21 on here. May give it a little bit, maybe 45 seconds or so. And then we'll get rocking and rolling. I was gonna share the screen, I guess, real quick, just to show you, just a reminder again on who's got what. So one is outer, meaning you got the questions today. Two is inner, meaning you are going to be discussing twice. We're going to go back to the whole, I'm going to have everyone's face on the screen kind of deal. And then I'll have a participants page pulled up. And so when you want to ask a question, you're going to use your hand raise function. And then everybody else is just going to talk. Okay. Obviously 5 points of this is just participation. Or actually 10 points is participation and turning in your notes at the end. So, the people who do it best, I don't know. I think Katja Blickenstoff is the one that does it well. She will like write out the question or whatever the theme is, and then write the responses underneath it. That's kind of if you have time to do that and you can multitask, that's pretty good to do. Okay, in terms of taking notes on these. And then you end up with a pretty organized set of notes. Or if you just take it by hand, jot the question down, follow along, write the answer. The other thing I wanted to say was try to clarify, some of you are coming up with these complex questions and they sound really intelligent, but the issue is if no one can answer it, it's not that valuable for us either. So try to tell us maybe if it's a complex question that you think maybe some people will struggle to answer, that maybe tell us like where you got it from, okay? And don't say Google. That's not very helpful. Okay. So on that note, everyone sees what they're supposed to do. You need to earn your points today. And we need participation. If you can't tell, I've gone into the whole participatory mode here of late, trying to get you functioning and making sure you're keeping up with the material by doing by being able to do something. Okay. All right, I got to get everyone on. I got to figure out how to do this view thing. We're on gallery view. There, I got everybody. All right, I got to make it a little bigger. And I need participants. All right, so who wants to be the leader here? Looks like Lily ZS got it first. So go ahead.
My question is, how did industrialization in Europe help Europeans to conquer Africa? And I got this question from the fill-in notes on Monday.
So just yep.
So I think we also touched on this yesterday, just the advancements in their military strength and power and like the weaponry itself, but then also making things like new medicines to help them fight off diseases when they went to like foreign places like Africa, because they didn't have like the antibodies built up yet. And then also their just innovation in like making sure that they have connections like with railroads and and like better telegraph lines, so they could send messages out to like troops or even just supplies to help them keep like their forces up and keep like their hold on new colonies.
The industrialization also helped a lot with the economy.
I think Hannah touched a lot on it, but going along with medicine, medicine increased the like recovery rate of like diseases and stuff, which caused the population to expand. Therefore, there could be more people that are in the military, which also and more people in the military made it easier for the Europeans to conquer because a higher population in the military gives them like an advantage.
Lucy, Hiddle.
I have a question. So am I asking that?
Yes.
Okay. My question was explain and evaluate the princely states and why did they matter to the British Rajah? I got this from the book.
The British Raj.
Yeah.
The princely states, it like allowed them to gain more control of India because Indian princes, I don't think it was like they were like Indian princes were like forced to give in to the power of the British, and so those states were under the power of British, and that helped with industrialization and like expanding British territory.
Brooke or Ethan's next. Ethan.
Can you explain how tropical dependencies were governed? And I got that question from the textbook.
Hey Ethan, you think you could do us a favor and type that into the chat? You sounded like a version like Shrek met I don't know, Darth Vader or something. I think you blew Sam Sewell's eardrum out. Can you explain how tropical dependencies were governed? Okay.
Well, so the way that I took it from the reading is that the British, first of all, they looked back to their older colonies like India. So what they did in India was they exploited long-standing like ethnic and cultural divisions, like the Shia Sunni like divisions, and they used that to put down resistance and maintain control. So like while everyone else is like fighting themselves, they could like slowly keep gaining more power and more territory.
I would also describe it as a small group of like British bureaucrats controlled a large indigenous population.
Yeah, and they also used like colonized peoples as bureaucrats and soldiers.
Brooke.
Okay, so this is from the book. With like the rise of racial supremacy, identify what in the Europeans like their scientific experiment proved them to think that the natives were supposedly inferior to intelligence.
Brooke, if you had to rephrase that question, but you were only allowed 12 words, try that again.
So okay, with that's hard. Okay, so with white racial supremacy, so can I just like explain it just a little bit instead
Sure.
of way? Okay, so like with white racial supremacy, so the Europeans conducted like this scientific experiment as they thought. That's what they called it, and then that led them to like the thought that natives were not like they're inferior to intelligence, and I'm like asking like what in this experiment like made them think this way.
I'm gonna put it in help the whole group out. Why like what caused the Europeans to think that they were superior over everyone else?
They thought that they were superior just because of how they had gone through this enlightenment, right? And just like the industrial revolution and just westernization, they thought overall was just superior to these people that they're encountered because their culture and just civilization hadn't quite gone through that yet. And they also excluded themselves greatly most of the time from like the natives because they just saw them as like slaves or just laborers because of the color of their skin and just like mentally not as like high as say like a western person was. But that's also because the western people they had more opportunity for education, but this overall just led to this idea of white supremacy because of how excluded the native people were and how the social hierarchy had put like white and western people at the very top.
Yeah, adding on to what Hannah said, the the Europeans had more technological advancements, so they like the Africans didn't have that, so they thought that they were above the Africans.
All right, Kim Aiken.
My question is, how did the opening of the Suez Canal affect world trade? And this is from the in-class notes.
It linked the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, and that made trade a lot easier.
Um, let's move on. E-Ray, you got it.
This question's from the book. Describe life in India in comparison to Africa.
Like what I believe was that life in Africa was more harsh than life in India before and after the British control, because after the British control in Africa, their people was put in labors, and like the labors was like harsh for them, while India, like it wasn't as bad. And also like before the British control, India was like a part of the of like the Asia trading system, and like that helped him, and like life there before the British control was much better than Africa, because like they didn't have much, and like yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I think people in India, like their like intermixing between them and white people was more accepted than as it was in Africa when like or when natives and like white peoples like and Africans like when they would mix it'd usually be like strictly formal or just like with work. And Indians I think also were able to get like higher status in like the social hierarchy, like not as much as like a regular white person, but more than what the Africans got.
All right, Sam Sewell.
My question was, in what ways did the Boer War affect the British?
Can you say that a little bit louder, please?
In what ways did the Boer War affect the British?
After the Boer Wars, the British took over South Africa, and then the Boers moved up north, and then I think the British would soon go up north as well.
Victoria, go ahead.
Okay, my question was, what was the role of the sepoys in the British East Indian Company? And I found that in a textbook.
Sepoys were troops who served the British East India Company in war, and they were like recruited from various people all over India.
Lucy McJunkins.
Okay, so my question is like, it's like opinionated mixed with like the stuff that we've learned this week, but it's why do you think the murders of 10 million people in Africa doesn't get discussed as much as other historical events?
Because of racism, and our history is kind of whitewashed nowadays. So we really learn about like, the white genocide of like in like the Holocaust Germany, but we don't learn. That's why we don't learn it about the genocide in Africa.
I think, oh, sorry. You want to go? You can go. You can go.
All right, Nate.
Thank you. I also was thinking maybe it depends on where you are in the world because America didn't really have much to do with like didn't have as much to do as like British with those deaths. So maybe if you were in Britain, then you would know a lot more about it. Whereas with like the Holocaust and stuff, we know about that because we were involved in it.
People where they grew up, even like that grew up in the same area where the genocide was located, they have not learned about that either. So it is racism.
I think it's also because we kind of focus on the European side, how it was beneficial to their economy that they like colonized the Africans. And I think we don't really think about how the Africans were treated in that situation. And I think that's why we kind of push it off because we don't think about that as much as we think about how the Europeans were being benefited.
Also, probably like most of the historical records were written by like white people, so it was probably from like their point of view and how they wanted to see it.
Yeah, they probably didn't want to like seem like the bad people, so they probably wrote it so they didn't have to learn about it or focus on it.
I'm gonna interject just a moment because this is that's like a question that I get really that really sparks my curiosity and interest, as it maybe does you as well. Couple side notes. One, I think Jasmine might have picked that up if she watched the video. If you look at the comments on the bottom of that video that I posted, there are people like in Belgium posting that they go to school and they haven't been taught that in high school, which is crazy, right? But I mean, how many Americans aren't taught about the savage attitude colonists had towards the Native Americans? I guess the second thing then would be one thing we need to realize as a class is that Charles Goodyear. You guys have heard of Goodyear tire before? I mean, there's probably a shop within a couple miles of your house. They're prominent in racing, obviously, and all this different stuff. Goodyear got most of their rubber and their start from rubber from the Congo. And that's a company in the United States. So kind of Nate saying like we weren't really involved or we should wash our hands clean of this, but we're just as guilty as any other European country, if I have to be honest. It's just we have an ocean separating us, so we like to think we're better, you know? Anyone else have anything to say on that?
Yeah, it's probably like not that good for like any kind of business to be like, oh yeah, so we used to do racism, but it's cool now.
You continue to see very large companies coming out and apologizing and donating millions and millions of dollars to Holocaust funds because allegations will come out and say, oh well, you were connected to the Holocaust. For example, I don't know if you know the history of the Bush family, but the first Bush politician was had doctored up a deal with the Nazis, as I think he was kind of like the trade secretary for I don't know, one of the presidents. And that's come out here recently. I mean, obviously there's been two different Bushes as president, so it eventually came out, and there's different stuff like that happens all the time. All right, let's go to the next question here. I see two hands up. Lucy, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
So my question is, explain the impacts of the Sepoy Mutiny on the British, and I got this from the notes.
We got a lot of people who still need to earn some points here, so let's start speaking up.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, my question was, explain the impacts of the Sepoy Mutiny on the British. So like, what did this have, like what effects did this have on the British? And I got this from the notes that we took on Tuesday.
I know that the sepoys caused the British to end the rule of the British East India Company.
Well, the British punished the sepoys who refused to load rifles, and the British also crushed the rebellion.
All right, let's go to the next question. One thing you probably want to add to your notes is also the fact that I think this is what you're probably alluding to want to be said, was that it caused the British to directly rule India, which then caused more infrastructure to be built and eventually would lead to Indian independence because of that. Let's go to Nyla. Go ahead.
My question is, why did other countries claim parts of South Africa? And I got that from the map in the book.
I believe that other country also try to claim Africa because Africa had most of the untouched natural resources that they wanted, and they were untouched because Africa wasn't as advanced as the other countries. That's why.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, so fueling industrialization, but then also like imperialism, just having their own colonies and using these colonies also as like economic ways. Like if the economy in a country wasn't doing too well, like colonies could help pull the country out of their slouch in their economy because they could also force them to like buy their goods and like make trade ports there so they could just use them as economic boosters, essentially.
All right, Brooke, what do you got for us?
So analyze why Ethiopia and Liberia were not colonized at first, and then how they were eventually colonized.
Wait, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so analyze why Ethiopia and Liberia were not colonized at first and how they were colonized eventually.
All right, we got a handful of people here that we need to still get some participation. So, why were Ethiopia and Liberia not colonized in the in renewed imperialism in the second half of the 19th century? All right, since no one's answering, Brooke, you got to answer it.
Because I know they're from like the notes that we touched on briefly in class. The second part is why I asked it because I wasn't quite sure, but I think the first part, I'm trying to like remember. I know you like touched on it briefly, but didn't it have to do something with? Oh, I'm like blanking on it right now.
All right, Liberia was a free state because the British had made it as a concession for enslaving so many Africans in their various colonies around the world that they made it as a place where slaves could return to and get free land, like a homeland. And then Ethiopia resisted Italian colonization because they industrialized their army. But then after World War One, Italy was taken over by Mussolini, a fascist dictator, and he would create a war machine and come back and destroy Ethiopia, take it over and move a lot of the cultural remnants of Ethiopia to Rome. And then since they've been moved back to Ethiopia. All right, Lucy, ask away. Let's go.
My question is from the notes that we took, and it just says, what were some punishments if Africans didn't do what they were told? And by this, I mean like when they were supposed to like collect rubber, what if they just didn't collect rubber?
They would get like mutilated, beaten with whips, or killed.
I think every time, like sometimes they would have their hands cut off, if their like quotas were not fulfilled.
The hand cutting was not for that one. The hand cutting was to keep track of the bullets they shot, so they would have to cut hands off of dead bodies. But since they were also using it for hunting, they cut off people that were alive. They cut off their hands to like cover it.
All right, E-Ray, you got one?
Yeah, this question is from the book. How did gender affect the social relations between European women and colonized indigenous people?
Say that one more time for us, will you?
Yeah. How did gender affect social relations between European women and colonized indigenous people?
I think I remember reading something when they were talking about social exclusion. So when women and children started coming over to these colonies, this just produced, or this like sparked a new, or just like the enclosing further and further of the social circle of white people. So with like women and children coming over, like our men, I think, try to limit their interactions between Native people even more. So this just further like push like the exclusion of the two people, and I think this also is part of the reason why like white racial supremacy happened, because the two groups were always like so separated. So that idea just formed that like the interactions just weren't as like acceptable unless they were like under like strict social reasons.
All right, Lucy, you want one?
Yeah, my question is also from the notes, and it just says, what does the sun never sets on the British Empire mean?
The sun never sits on the British Empire means that the British Empire was at one point so large, like it expanded multiple like countries or like places around the world, so that like it literally means that the sun would never set on the entirety of Britain. It may be night somewhere like in Australia, but in like I think they owned some of in the United States. It would have been day or something like
Yeah, and to add on to that, they established colonies all around the world, and India was one of their most important.
All right, Lucy, go ahead.
My question was, evaluate the effect the Scramble for Africa had on the Berlin Conference. And I got this from the notes.
These kind folks are giving some of you an opportunity to participate because they don't have to be asking second and third questions. So those of you who don't have your points, now would be a fantastic time for you to jump in.
Can you repeat one more time?
My question was evaluate the effect the Scramble for Africa had on the Berlin Conference.
All right, looks like you got your own question. Oh, someone's got to do it.
So it's like the effect was that Africa was open like for conquer by other country, and that for the other country to like conquer it, they must send their troops and official like to claim their peace, and like once they claim it, that to notify the committee that they claimed it, and that's what like that was the effect of the Berlin Conference on the scramble for Africa.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Berlin, because remember, like they just had like the big app in Africa, and then they took pencils and like drew out parts that they wanted. So just this way, they were just like deciding at that conference who got what, and like during the Scramble for Africa. So the Scramble for Africa initiate or like set the like layer or set the playing field for the Berlin Conference because all these countries came together to decide who would get what of Africa.
Also, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Kaylee.
Okay. Also, the countries knew that there was potential for war since all these other countries wanted to capture Africa. So to stop this potential for war, they knew that peace was needed, and that therefore they started the Berlin Conference.
I feel like some of you are telling jokes, and I'm not invited to the jokes. I don't like that. Okay, I see two Lucy's laughing at the same time.
Oh no, my mom was talking to me. She got me something from Starbucks, so I was smiling.
Jeez. Don't we all? I'm drinking cold coffee out of a plastic cup. Gosh. Unbelievable. All right, McJunkins, you got the last question. Rock and roll.
Okay, so my question is, what was Leopold's main goal throughout his leadership in Africa?
Can you ask that again, please?
Yeah, my question is, what was Leopold's main goal throughout his leadership in Africa?
I think Leopold's main goal was to advance advance Belgium as much as he could without thinking about Congo at all, like without trying to advance Congo.
Wait, what was the question?
Leopold. Oh.
Go ahead, Sam.
I said Leopold also wanted to use Africa as to get their resources and stuff like.
Owen, you wanna get in on this, Owen, since you came to the last 3 minutes of the discussion?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel like there's like a ton of like multiple answers for this question, but just that he came looking for expanding his empire and mainly economic growth, in my opinion.
I mean, what we're missing here, folks, is that he did not want to do this for the Congo, like Nate. It wasn't, I mean, he didn't want to do it for Belgium. The dude wanted to do it for himself. He literally kept like, it's unbelievable that this guy was making, and the money was going into his personal pocket. It's not like it was going to the national budget or anything, you know? It's not like everyone got a stimulus check after they killed 10 million people. It all just went into his private bank account, which is, that's one of the whole, that's why there's a book I would love for you guys to read if you are bored over winter break, and you want to actually read not on a computer screen. or most of you probably will download it on some fancy app, but it's called King Leopold's Ghost, and it is a great book. And it goes into a lot of detail. I think that most of you seem a little interested in this topic. So, King Leopold's Ghost. There's also a documentary video made about it. I've never actually watched that before because I had to pay for it, and I didn't want to pay for it. But I think it's like an hour and a half long. So we're gonna stop here, and Owen, since you did participate once, that's cool. But I'm gonna need you to upload questions as well. All right. Everybody else, there's an assignments tab or assignment on modules, chapter 25, 26. And I need you to put your notes and then your questions if that was you. And then Monday, there's no quiz because we have to follow the 9 weeks testing schedule. And so we'll have our notes quiz on Wednesday. And then for chapter 25 and 26, that test will be on the final exam. It'll be approximately 25 questions, maybe 30. And then I'll have 30 review questions from previous tests or similar questions from previous tests, okay? For about, I think, a 60 question multiple choice test. That's all your final is. That's way easier than in the past. I used to give a 90 question multiple choice test and a DBQ. So the reason for doing that is just that I don't know. I don't think I'm not comfortable with you writing a whole DBQ for a grade on your final exam at this point, just because I haven't spent as much time on it as I usually do. So, Lucy, you're asking why I spurked. I think it was a good question. I just think that guy was one of the most biggest scumbags in history. And it's one of my absolute favorite topics. I think it's one of my favorite books I've ever read. I've read it like 3 times. King Leopold's Ghost. It's actually sitting on my bookshelf over here. It's like the only book I think I kept from college, or one of the like few. So, all right, everybody have a great weekend. Chapter 26 is what you need to read, though. Don't put it off. Make sure you're ready to participate. I'd say the only other thing I'm a little worried about is retention of information. So when I'm talking and giving, like going over slides and stuff, I know it's hard to focus at home, but we really have to bring up our the retention of knowledge, I think, and information. And this is why we do these on Fridays, so that it gives me a good measuring stick of what you are, like what you're getting out of it too. So that's about it. Okay. I think the bell should ring in a minute. I'm not at school. So be good, everybody. Enjoy that Starbucks, Lucy. Privileged. Oh, food. Gosh. All right. See ya. Bye.